My name is Mara Bennett. I'm 34 years old. And 3 days after I said I do to Daniel Bennett, I discovered the man I married was not the man I thought I knew. He stood inches from me, his jaw clenched, his hand rising as he hissed, "You should have told me what you were hiding." I stepped backward, expecting the first blow of my marriage, but then my phone on the dresser captured his voice. Daniel didn't know it was recording. He also didn't know that someone was listening outside our bedroom door. And he certainly didn't know that. The person outside had already collected evidence that could eventually destroy everything he had planned. What was Daniel talking about? What had I hidden? Why was my 19-year-old sister Lily afraid of him? And what was inside the old leather suitcase she refused to unpack? I wish I could say I recognized the danger immediately. I didn't. That was my mistake. I worked as a compliance investigator at a regional bank, where my career depended on spotting lies hidden inside ordinary paperwork. Give me a suspicious signature, a missing transaction, or 2 dates that didn't match, and I could find the problem. But when it came to Daniel, I trusted feelings over facts. He had seemed thoughtful, patient, and protective when we met. He remembered how I took my coffee. He brought flowers without an occasion. When he met Lily, he told her, "You'll always have a place with us." I believed him. So did she at first. Lily had been living with me for nearly 2 years after our father's death. She arrived carrying a leather suitcase and a damaged backpack, and she never completely unpacked. She kept the suitcase beside her bed, asked permission before taking food from the kitchen, and thanked me whenever I bought her something as simple as shampoo. One night I told her, "Lily, you don't have to earn your place here." She looked at me and whispered, "I know." But her eyes said she didn't believe me. I should have paid attention. Instead, I married Daniel, and 3 days later, while his raised hand froze above me, Lily whispered from the hallway, "Mara, don't let him know I found it." I had no idea then that those 6 words would become the first crack in the story Daniel had built around me. Before I explain what Lily had found, you need to understand why I trusted Daniel enough to marry him. We met at a charity dinner where I was reviewing paperwork for the event's sponsor. He noticed I was working and joked that I looked like I was investigating the dessert table. I laughed. It was the first time in months someone made me laugh. Over the next 8 months, Daniel became the person I called first. He never demanded my attention and seemed to understand when I needed space. That made the changes after our engagement harder to recognize. His questions arrived disguised as concern. How much was left from my father's estate? Where did I keep the property documents? Would Lily really need to live with us forever? He smiled and said, "We're building a life together. Mara, couples shouldn't have secrets." It sounded reasonable. That was his method. He rarely pushed through the front door. He made you open it for him. After the wedding, the questions became specific. He wanted to know my banking passwords. I refused. He laughed and kissed my forehead, saying he was only teasing. 2 days later, he asked why Lily had a separate savings account. I told him it was private. His expression changed for barely a second. "You protect her too much," he said. I should have recognized the warning. I apologized. That evening, Lily barely touched dinner. When Daniel left the table, she quietly asked, "Did he ask about Dad's money?" I froze. "Why would you ask that?" She shook her head. "No reason. But there was a reason. I just didn't know it yet." The following morning, I found Daniel outside my study. He said he was looking for a charger, but the charger was in our bedroom. When I asked what he had been doing, he became offended. "You think I'm stealing from you?" I told him no, but his reaction stayed with me. Later, Lily showed me a scratch on the lock of her suitcase. Someone had tried to open it. She insisted she had locked it before leaving for college. Then she whispered quietly, "Mara, I think Daniel knows about the envelope. I had almost forgotten the envelope existed. It had been sealed since our father died. And suddenly, the man I had married wasn't asking questions about our future. He was searching for our past." I stared at Lily after she mentioned the envelope, because I had spent years trying not to think about what was inside it. Our father had left it with one instruction: only open this if someone tries to take what belongs to you. At the time, I thought he meant money. I never imagined he might have meant a person. Lily noticed my silence and reached beneath her mattress, pulling out an old phone with a cracked screen. "I've been saving things," she whispered. "What things?" I asked. She opened a folder filled with recordings, screenshots, and photographs. My stomach tightened when I heard Daniel's voice. He was speaking to someone I didn't recognize. Once she signs, the estate becomes easier to control. Another voice asked. And the sister? Daniel paused before answering. She won't be a problem. I felt the room tilt beneath me. How long had this been happening? Why was Daniel discussing my estate before our wedding? And why did Lily sound as if she had been preparing for this moment? She showed me a photograph taken from across the street. It was our house, photographed at night. Lily's bedroom window had been circled in red. When did you find this? I asked. The morning before your wedding. My hands went cold. She had known something was wrong before I walked down the aisle. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Lily looked ashamed. Because every time I tried, he made me think I was imagining things. Then he told me you would choose your husband over me. That sentence hurt because I realized Daniel had already identified my weakness. He knew I feared losing my family, and he had been quietly turning that fear against me. We went downstairs together. I opened my father's leather suitcase and removed the sealed envelope. Inside was a document I had never seen before, a power of attorney form bearing my father's signature, but the date made no sense. It was dated 6 months after his death. I called my lawyer, but before she answered, Daniel walked through the front door. He looked at the papers in my hand and stopped. For the first time since I met him, I saw genuine fear on his face. Where did you get that? He asked. I said nothing. He stepped closer. Mara, you don't understand what you're looking at. Maybe I didn't, but Lily did. She quietly locked the front door behind him. Then she whispered, now we find out who else is involved. The next morning, I took the documents to Rebecca Sloan, an attorney who handled financial fraud and estate disputes. She studied the power of attorney, form for nearly 5 minutes without saying a word. Then she looked at me and asked, Mara, when did Daniel first meet you? I told her. She opened the file again. Because whoever created this document knew details about your father's estate before your husband ever proposed. That sentence changed everything. Daniel had not simply become interested in my money after our wedding. Someone had been studying my family before he entered my life. Rebecca told me not to confront him and began checking every document connected to my father's estate. Meanwhile, Daniel changed tactics. He stopped shouting and became almost frighteningly calm. He brought flowers. He apologized for the bedroom incident. He told me I was stressed. I would never hurt you. For one dangerous moment, I wanted to believe him. Then he added, but Lily needs professional help. She's putting ideas into your head. That was when I understood the apology wasn't remorse. It was strategy. 2 days later, Daniel filed a complaint claiming I was becoming emotionally unstable and that Lily was manipulating me against him. He wanted temporary control over certain marital accounts while the matter was reviewed. My first reaction was panic. My second was anger. Rebecca's investigator traced one of the anonymous numbers from Lily's recordings to Daniel's cousin, Aaron. Aaron had photographed our house before the wedding. When confronted, he broke down. Daniel told me you were hiding assets, he admitted. He said he needed proof. He handed Rebecca a folder containing emails Daniel had sent months before our wedding. One subject line read, Mara Bennett, estate access. My hands started shaking. Daniel had researched me before proposing. But there was worse. The emails showed he had contacted an estate attorney asking whether marriage would give him authority over property connected to my father. It wouldn't, unless he could make me sign certain documents. Suddenly, every strange question made sense. The banking questions, the study, the suitcase, Lily's savings account, even his sudden interest in making me doubt my sister. He wasn't trying to build a marriage. He was building access. Then Rebecca found one final message. Daniel had written, once the complaint is filed, she'll be easier to control. I stared at the screen, remembering his hand above me. The fear I had felt that night turned into something stronger. I wasn't going to defend my marriage anymore. I was going to defend the truth. And the next morning we walked into court. The courtroom, Daniel looked as though he had prepared for a performance. He sat beside his attorney, wearing the confidence I had seen at our wedding. The judge asked about the power of attorney document, and everything changed. Daniel claimed he had never seen it before our marriage. Rebecca presented emails proving he had asked an estate attorney about controlling my father's property months before proposing. Then came the recordings. Daniel's own voice filled the courtroom. Once she signs, the estate becomes easier to control. The investigator produced the original files, timestamps, and verification records. The judge allowed the evidence to stand. Daniel's face tightened. The most powerful evidence came from Lily. She walked to the witness stand carrying the cracked phone she had hidden. Her hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "Why did you record these conversations?" the judge asked. Lily swallowed. "Because every time I tried to tell Mara something was wrong, Daniel convinced her I was the problem." She looked at me. I was scared she would believe him. Daniel had spent months trying to make Lily feel powerless. Instead, she had documented everything. The investigator connected the anonymous messages to Daniel's cousin, Aaron, and the photographs of our house to the same plan. Bank records showed Daniel had researched my accounts before our wedding. The forged document was rejected, and the attempted property transfer was stopped. His complaint against me collapsed because the evidence contradicted his claims. There was no dramatic arrest that day. There didn't need to be. His carefully built image was gone. Outside the courtroom, Daniel approached me. "Mara, I loved you," I answered. "You loved what you thought you could control." Then I walked away. I filed for divorce, protected my accounts, and changed the locks. But the most important decision belonged to Lily. When asked where she wanted to live, she looked at me and said, "Home." Months later, she finally unpacked the leather suitcase that had stayed beside her bed since the day she arrived. The suitcase was empty. For years it had represented escape. Now it represented choice. Daniel lost the access he wanted, and the marriage he had turned into a transaction. I lost a husband, but I found my judgment again. If someone ever makes you question your instincts to keep the peace, remember this: protecting the truth is not destroying a family. Sometimes it is the only way to save one.